This video is for the designers who are as nosy as I am, who love peeking other people's files and understanding exactly how others are bringing real client projects to life from start to finish. So I'm going to walk you through how I created this website, including my design process in Figma, where I brought in AI to speed things up, how I got it built, all that good stuff. And if you're newer to freelancing, or even if you're not, I think that seeing other designers' processes and files is extremely helpful. It was definitely the case for me, so that's why I share my work. Also, hi, I'm Anna. I'm an independent web designer, former UX designer, and I'm here to help people run the most profitable, efficient, and fun design businesses possible. Let's dive in. First up is what I call the project foundation stage. And really, this is all about just getting enough context to avoid confusion later in the project. So before I even touch Figma, I want to really understand the client's vision. And I do that by sending them a pretty thorough questionnaire. I will link mine below if you want to use it as a jumping off point. And once I got my client's answers in the questionnaire is where AI came in for the first time in the project. So I used Claude, like I always do, to transform the questionnaire responses into content for my full project planning and kickoff deck. So I have a separate video on that workflow that goes into a lot of detail, so I won't get too into it right now, but basically this deck is what gets me and my clients completely aligned before any design work happens. And in my experience, it saves lots of rounds of revisions later in the project. My personal favorite part of this deck is adding in the mood boards or stylescapes. So that's where we'll head next. All right, gathering material for the mood boards might sound basically just like browsing on the internet, but I actually have a very specific system here that has saved me a ton of time. I have a bookmarks folder, which is just a curated library of what I consider to be like best in class websites organized by the main industries that I work with. So when this client came to me, I didn't need to go down a mobbing rabbit hole or spend 2 hours on Pinterest. Although let's be honest, that definitely happens occasionally. But for a typical project like this one, I opened the folder that the client's category fits into. So in this case, personal websites. I open all the sites in a separate window and I spend about 30 minutes doing 3 things. Number 1, refreshing myself on the visual language of this specific industry or this type of website. So common aesthetics, so that depending on whether my client wants to really like align themselves with the big dogs in their industry or really differentiate themselves, I can understand what that would look like. Second, I'm looking for content patterns. So what sections do these websites typically include, which pages, and this helps me make sure that I'm accounting for all of the content and pages that we should be. And lastly, of course, I'm taking screenshots of specific elements that I might want to draw inspiration from in their mood board. It's a pretty simple system. I think that's why it's worked so well for me. So after going through this process, here were the different mood boards that I thought could work well for this client. These are always based on a combination of my opinion as a designer, as well as the preferences that that client has indicated they're interested in. You can see my first option here was a bit lighter, kind of more restrained, and then the other one was a bit more bold with brighter colors and heavier typefaces. In the end, this client liked different elements of each one of these, so I recorded that feedback before moving on to the next step. If you're enjoying this video, now is a great time to help a human out and press that like button. In my opinion, creating the homepage is maybe the most fun part of the website process. This is where I explored different homepage possibilities, and here you can see the messy exploration page where I was designing. I really try not to constrain myself at this step. I just try lots of different things. A quick note that I do try to explore multiple distinct directions for the homepage, but of course I don't want to go completely rogue on the mood board that we've already aligned on. So the overall vibe is established, but what I'm exploring within that is just different combinations of typography, color, layout, stuff like that. Here is the cleaned up homepage options that I ended up presenting. I also had a typography exploration here for the main headline font. And fun little side note, even though I do get a lot of inspiration from other websites, I definitely don't limit myself only to other websites. I honestly don't think that would result in very original work. So my brain does get inspired by all kinds of things when I'm working on a project. For example, the Taylor Swift Eras Tour posters, which is kind of what inspired the color overlays on this person's collection of writing pieces. See what I mean? So the client let me know which direction they preferred overall. They gave me a bit of feedback again. Then that homepage became the foundation for this next step. With the homepage approved, I moved on to designing the whole rest of the website pages. Ultimately, I like to show clients a full high-ish fidelity prototype in Figma before I build anything. This is the step where I want to tell you about something that has genuinely transformed how I work. So about 2 years into having my freelance business, I had a free week or so between projects. I used that time to do a full audit of just about every website I had produced in order to understand which sections and layouts I seemed to be reaching for over and over again. The ones that just consistently worked well for clients in my niche and the ones that I liked the most. So I took all of those and I built them into a single foundations file. What's in that file is just about 4 to 6 built unstyled sections within each of these categories. Now, when I have a new project, I'm never ever building from scratch. I pull lots of elements from that file. I drop them into my client project Figma file, and I'll start just playing around with new styling and making adjustments. So I'm using those elements as jumping off points. And probably 80% of any given website that I do is produced in that way. This frees me up to put most of my energy into the remaining 20%. And those are the parts that to me make a website feel genuinely custom and really special. So for this project, that was things like the color overlays on the article pages, the name animation on the homepage, the hover states in the navigation. That is the stuff that really makes a client feel like they're getting something that nobody else has. That's the reason that they've hired me or you rather than just picking out a pre-built template on Squarespace or Wix. So rather than burn energy rebuilding sections on each project, this kind of 80-20 mentality lets me save that effort and channel it towards the 20% that really counts. So if you're interested in getting access to my foundations file, let me know in the comments. I'm thinking of making it available. Last step was bringing this all to life in Webflow. And I'll be honest, I'm not going to spend a ton of time here, and that is intentional because my hot take is that the tool you use matters a lot less than people think. Webflow, Framer, Cursor, Lovable, there are whole channels dedicated to each of those, and I think any of them can produce great results for clients. As long as what you hand over checks the key boxes, like the website loads fast, it has strong SEO and accessibility scores, the client can make updates to the site without needing to reach out to each time. If the answer is yes, then I think you've done your job regardless of what tool you use to build the site. The other thing I will mention here is that I personally like to get help with this step. So while the website is getting built, I can already be moving on to design for the next project, or I can be doing outreach to fill up my pipeline. But in the beginning, I started how most people do, which is building and doing everything myself. I think that's a totally natural starting point, and some people do prefer to stay working that way. My personal opinion is that if you really want to grow your business, it's good to start thinking early on about what you could maybe delegate or automate. So that was my full process for creating this website, from the kickoff questionnaire all the way to handing over the finished site. If there's anything that I skipped over too quickly and you want a deep dive video on, definitely drop a comment. And if you want to actually use any of the systems that I walked through today, most of them can be accessed via the link below. Everything is built to be able to plug straight into your own workflow. And if the AI parts of this video caught your attention, or if you're curious about how I do pricing for projects like this, then watch one of these next 2 videos. Thanks so much for tuning in. And if you're the kind of designer who geeks out on process stuff like this, then make sure to subscribe so you don't miss what's next. Thanks again.